Right. Precisely. Yeah. I think about it like I see a lot of people talk about how men, like on the internet or wherever, have trouble empathizing with like victims or survivors. They will immediately jump to the defense of the man and say, what was he like? Did he know? Or like in an instant interaction, they will choose to take the man's side. And I always think back to like being in college or being in high school at parties and how there's always some dudes doing some weird shit. You know what I mean? Like that's a thing that is like pretty fucking common. And in my experience of seeing people do it and having to, and like recognizing like, oh, this is weirdo shit, but like people will potentially defend it. And it's like so normalized. Like 1 in 3 women have gone through like sexual assault or whatever the statistic is for the US. It's like very common. And so things like that, once you start to pick up on it, it becomes more likely that you just say like, yeah, this is like, we don't really need to like specifically, I feel like a lot of times I don't need to specifically explain why this is bad because we know what's going on here. Like we can see this.
Right.
And if you can't, then it could come off as pandering because you just don't understand. And so ultimately that's the bridge I'm trying to gap, or the gap I'm trying to bridge is, can I still make something entertaining for people that need the catharsis and need to like know that right away this is fucked up, while also trying to reach out to people that maybe like they're just socialized wrongly. I mean, men, like there's all these problems with masculinity, how it's socialized in us, and it's not like necessarily men's fault. And so without blaming them, and again, it's a fine line because either you're people think you're hating all men, or people think you're being way too like what's it called, like giving to bad dudes. You know?
I found that there's nothing you can do at a certain point. You know, it's like there's absolutely no way with some of these dudes to present to them an argument that they won't strawman into a narrative that lets them maintain their worldview. You know. I remember one of the weird guys you did who was like, I guess on the black pill or whatever. And like, I didn't follow up on him in particular, but I've seen like, I feel like I've seen this content before. And it's like, when all the QAnon stuff was happening and lots of people doing research about conspiracy theories, something I remember seeing was like, oh, what is it called? Confirmation bias. But I think it was a little bit deeper. But the long and short of it was a person who is truly sucked into a world, a viewpoint, or a mental space, a cult ideology, which I think a lot of this manosphere stuff is definitely cult-like. No amount of evidence you're going to present to them can change. They'll just take it and rearrange it to reinforce the way they're thinking the entire time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why, like, I think the tactic that you have shouldn't even be too much about convincing, you know, manosphere weirdos to think otherwise. It's to let other folks know that, like you said, they're not alone, to provide a perspective for those who are on, I guess, the teetering on the side, and to help folks that are out or on their way out understand what happened, you know? And I think that's like a useful way of looking at it. Part of it, I think maybe is just the pressure I put on myself, because like I've put, you know, for lack of a better way of putting it, anti-manosphere, adjacent stuff in almost all of my content about men has always been reconstructing our understanding of masculinity, understanding patriarchy and how it explicitly affects men, and not just like men equal patriarchy, etc. And that has been successful in terms of like growing an audience of men. The thing that I like to tout the most is, you know, the manosphere acolytes, the diehards will say, you know, you're clearly making content for women. And then I show them my analytics and it's like, no, my audience is 63% men. My side channel audience is 70% men. I just found that out today. I had never looked. So like there's clearly there are a lot of men, young and old. Like I have some old viewers, I guess they're my age, but you get the point, who like they have been wanting to reject this type of energy in this space. They've been wanting something different. Something that I thought was interesting from T1J, a T1J video last week, is he talked about like the reality of Twitter and pointed out that like something like 80% of all Twitter tweets are from 1% of Twitter users. And so like, I imagine that is literally the worst people in the world arguing with us. Like that's I think that's what it is. It's the worst people that, you know, the worst alt-right, you know, hyper conservative whomever's arguing with us, like stalking our pages for whenever you bring up Jordan Peterson or insert manosphere figure here to like argue with us. Yeah, for me, that put it in perspective to disengage the pressure of having the perfect response, and more so re-engaging with like the healthy boys only concept, which I now like. I keep saying that, waiting for it to catch on, because I love the nature of what that is, because I think so much of what this is there's literally going to be, there's a 13-year-old boy at school right now that's going to strike out with the girl he's liked since he was 10. He's going to just fumble the bag, and he's going to go home sad and then get on YouTube. And if the algorithm would just show him you before they show him Sneako or Andrew Tate, so much goodness in that boy's life would be there. But at the same time, and here's an argument I've been putting out and kind of working on, 7 times out of 10, by the time that kid is 14, if there's any useful support systems in his life, if his parents are aware of the nature of online like communities and discourse, he's gonna have made his way through that phase. And that's the thing that really often worries me is, you know, if you have a teenage boy in your circle that is online, understand YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever is showing him Andrew Tate. The algorithm gives no shits about the mental and long-term health of your 13-year-old nephew. They want them to engage. And seeing Andrew Tate say ridiculous things is gonna create engagement. And so when I hear healthy boys only, I'm like, hey, you know what? That's a hashtag. That's a shirt. You know, it's the master's tools a little bit, but it's important. It's important that we jump in to a certain level.
You mentioned it in an earlier stream about how there's generally 2 groups of people that the manosphere is for. And it's like the younger guys who are just got like dumped, going through a breakup, just shot their shot and failed, and they're embarrassed or whatever, like some kind of trauma response, maybe not even trauma, but just like regular shit, like feeling alone, lonely, they turn to it. And then there's the group of older dudes that are like, I don't know, like Me Too guys, divorcees, the guys that are like full profit, fully bought into the prophecies of the Fresh and Fits and like the Andrew Tates and things. And the difference is that the younger group can get out of it. And the difference is that the younger group hasn't fully gone through the socialization and still has a chance to go outside and experience how, like, you know, if you ask a girl for a number and she says no, if you ask another girl for her number, maybe she says yes, and then maybe you go on a date and you have fun, and maybe you don't, but the point is, like, you just do that over and over, and you realize that everyone is like a human. Yeah. Women are humans, shout out, and like you start to like, okay, this is cool, but it doesn't take long, you know, it just takes like a little bit of a nudge, and you can tell because, like, I don't know, you go through a lot of these channels, you check the comments, the guys a lot of times you can tell, like, they'll comment on like every video, be like, yeah, this is awesome, man, you get these girls, you get them, and then at some point they'll just stop, or they'll have just started recently, and it's like they're super into it, they're super engaged, and this is like, this tracks with how people talk about having been alt-right radicalized or sucked into, just whenever they talk about being in the manosphere, is like, I started watching these videos and like I was really into it, and then at some point I was like, this is really gross, and like, why was I thinking this? And then I was done. And so I think in some way what you mentioned, like, about not having to provide like a perfect bulletproof argument for this stuff is that's very helpful for me to hear, because I've been struggling with that, as in like putting my pressure on myself to do that when that's not what I'm best at. What I'm best at is like presenting things, making it funny and showing why it's silly, even if it's not like, the internet, like, you watch a Sneako video, it's just him screaming, and people like that. The internet doesn't need to be an MLA format thing, people that it's more so my taste of video essays, the type of ones that I watch, I'm like borderline envious, and I'm like, I want to do this, and I want to see if I can do it. But then I realized the thing I'm supposed to be constructing this perfect essay for is literally a guy saying that, like, you know, women should get pregnant at 13. And I'm like, this is why am I doing this? I don't need to do this. I could just call him a weirdo and move on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyways.
So switching gears somewhat, like the creator part is really what I tend to be very interested in, especially as it pertains to how the algorithm and like the forces around us shape the content and shape what content is viable on the platform. Everybody knows I'm a big CJ the X fan. CJ the X just dropped like their magnum opus video, and maybe there was a blurred out butt at some point in time in the video, and that was demonetized, right? My last video, I could not put black men in the title or would get demonetized. I'm gonna say her name wrong. Olivia Su, a young Olivia. Do you know who I'm talking?
Yeah.
It's Olivia
is her channel, but the video with foreign, right?
Yeah, and that's another example. Like two excellent videos doing a thing. Like a real thing for leftist, bread to progressive, whatever word you want to call it, content that are buried because of demonetization, and there's like no rhyme or reason why, and so it's almost like we're incentivized to just create drama content. You know what I'm saying? And you're incentivized to take the screaming guys seriously. And like, you know, all this is coming from an epiphany I had. So I watched the Sneako Abba and Preach debate. Maybe it was a week ago, maybe last Thursday, I think is when it happened. And I was emotionally like affected by what I was seeing. You know, I have my issues with Abba and Preach. Those are, I think, pretty clear. But I also I see some value in like kind of them as like a barrier to like the deeper stuff or a beacon out, and you know, but that's, you know, whatever. Sneako obviously is wild right now. And I have seen and dealt with, you know, family members and close people go through what I thought Sneako was going through, or maybe what he is going through. I'm not sure. And so I'm reacting to the video, and like halfway through, I started to think to myself, I don't think this is genuine from Sneako, which then low-key like made me disingenuous, if that makes sense. And then Sneako starts talking about crypto, and I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
This is
who could have guessed?
Right. This is just performative anti-wokeness as a thing. Like we talk about performative wokeness, but like the funny thing is the real money for those who have the talent is in performative anti-wokeness, because you don't have to be all that talented, but it helps. You don't have to do much research. You just have to be anti-woke and loud, and there's crowds of 14-year-old boys, you know, looking for that. And so I found myself being so when I finished it, I had every intention to like use it for content, and when I finished it, I just deleted it after the next day. I was like, I don't want to be a part of this like nonsense now. My next video is going to be about freaking poetry or some shit. Like,
Nature walk.
Yeah, a nature walk. It's literally a touch grass vlog. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I don't know. Do with that what you can.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I watched that, and after that, I basically looked into Sneako because I didn't know. I knew who he was through an interaction that he had with D'Angelo Wallace. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically,
I saw.
D'Angelo Wallace was like a big video essayist. Yeah, so like my perception of him was very like, oh, this guy's just like young and inflammatory and loud and like he seems extremely insufferable and annoying, whatever. And I mean, that also tracks onto like the conversation he had with Abba, and then he has this channel where it's like these young streamers like Aiden Ross or like iShowSpeed. I'm not sure if you're familiar with either of these guys.
A little bit.
They pump out like 10 videos a day, and the thumbnail's always like, and it's like them, you know, reacting to something half-assedly, and like most of them get like 30,000 views, but some of them get 400,000, and all you need is for one of those a month to do. Yeah, it's like or like you know, you can tell they set them up in front of a camera and they have their photographer or whatever just take like
7,
and they use them throughout the month, and it works. Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
You can make a lot of money pumping out 30,000 view videos a day. Is 300,000 videos a day. I mean, views a day, which is several million in a month, which is a good, I don't know, 15 G's. So like, I get it. It's depressing.
It's depressing, and like, so what I was saying is like, I was looking at Sneako, and his main channel, his old content is like these, like a lot of them are very problematic. He has one called like "Are Trans People Real?" and he goes to the street. It's like he interviews people, asks them questions, and like some of them are extremely problematic. Like that one specifically, the "Is it okay to be fat?" things like that. But a lot of them are very. What makes them good, I think, engaging and interesting content is that it's very like raw. Like he talks to people on the street, he gets their opinions. He doesn't like lead people into any directions necessarily, and it's just very entertaining, and it feels like, oh, these are humans, you're learning about them. But then clearly at some point he got into the red pill shit, and now his managers or whatever set him up with this content output channel, and so now it's just like insane. And I don't know how it'll affect his main works, which is his main channel that he does those videos on. But obviously there's a super big political agenda going on, and I don't see how it wouldn't affect his content, because it's like the one where it's called "Are Trans People Real?" He goes and asks people this question, and some people are like giving answers or whatever, and then he has these two trans women that sit down with him, and instead of like asking them about this, like normally that would require the content is to like get, oh, this is perfect, I'll ask them like what, like questions beyond that. He just like asks about their genitals, just like baby's first trans people understanding, and then that was it. And so things like that, it's like I worry like how the incentivization of pumping out content like that will create more guys who just use the red pill buzzwords and phrases because they know the audience likes it. They're like, yeah, girls do always contradict themselves or whatever. And what that will do, I don't know how well people are, or like people that are watching it are keeping up with what's going on. And I don't, that's like part of what I'm working on in the videos, breaking it down. But yeah,
I fear that too. I fear like this is for 10-year-olds. You know what I'm saying? 10 to like 17. I'm sure there's a couple of older gentlemen, right? But it's like when you see the output, when you see the Mr. Beast style thumbnail, you recognize what they're doing. How the long-term damage of that on those 10-year-olds or the people in those 10-year-olds' lives. What is it? You know what I'm saying? How deep do those 10-year-olds get? Is this the new, alt-right pipeline? I think it's very arguable to say that it kind of is, although it may not end up being alt-right yet. I don't think the alt-right pipeline started out as the alt-right pipeline. All it takes is a few useful grifters to slowly shift people further. To connect the dots. What, if anything, will YouTube do about it? Because they've been down this road. And I've had conversations with, people in Nebula that, know some YouTube people or engage around stuff. And I've been trying to say like, yo, y'all are not paying attention. And like, I hope it doesn't take another Charlottesville to, connect the dots for you. But at some point in time, like somebody's going to, and you made that video where, like YouTube did that massive change. I feel like that was 2017. And it reframed how algorithm bubbles worked and, lowered the priority of certain types of content, which is great, like, yay. But like the animal, it's like the blob. It just kind of reconfigured itself a little differently around that bubble, but with the same overall end goals. And so you have guys like a Sneako or a Tate. Like, it's so funny to me, like when I look at an Andrew Tate, who clearly does not care about like anything except getting his money. Like at least a guy like Sneako or even a Kevin Samuels had been on the platform trying stuff. And for Andrew Tate, this is like, oh, there's money to be made here. Let me come through, perform the thing, get the little boys. Yeah. And then I don't know how much, I don't know how long he's gonna stay. He'll stay as long as I guess he's making money. But like there's no level of, there's no video that perfectly diffuses that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm about, especially for like you, for myself, for other creators, like I just personally have so many other things I want to talk about over time. And I had no intention of ever even touching it. It wasn't until like I just kind of saw like, I was like, okay, this is getting weirder than I imagined in different ways. And then of course the response, like, okay, I need to get this out my system. And then I'm gonna make a Lauryn Hill video. You know, and like, is that me being responsible with my platform? You know what I'm saying? I know I don't feel like it isn't, but I don't know. I have so many, I'm rambling a little bit, but like that's how my thought process is, you know?
The point you said about no one video is going to diffuse this is so true. It's like these guys in the platforms aren't like just gonna go away when the perfect takedown video happens. That's not how it works. Some people will be veered away from it, but they have the platforms, they will keep going until like they just get banned for saying something like heinous or whatever, which they're already doing, but whatever. But there's no sense in feeling like you have to put that weight on your shoulders, because that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist a thing where you can go and just make the channels go away. However, like examples like the thing I was talking about earlier with Hassan and Andrew Tate, it's like that is a huge win in the rhetoric war, the online rhetoric war, which is, again, it's a made up facade thing, but it does influence people's thoughts and feelings, and like young people especially. And so the more wins like that, the better. But like if I were to think about devoting my life to taking down the manosphere, that would be a lost cause, because it only continues to grow. And as it gets like covered more clearly, as we start breaking down more accurately what's going on and what they're saying and why it's a problem, then it'll change. But again, like you said, they'll take that always and flip it in a way to make content off of it, to grow off of it. And there's no answer, but I mean, I personally have a great time doing it, because it's like, oh, this is weird. And like, I think people get why it's weird, but the people in the comments don't. So like, let's do something here, because it'll be fun.